Dhaka International University.
To share a few thoughts on Indo-Bangladesh policy landscape. But before I do that, let me pay my deepest gratitude to Professor K.M. Mohsen. The fact that today I have the privilege and the honor of standing in front of you and speaking on this occasion, I would not exaggerate to say that but for Professor Mohsen, I would have been nowhere in life. Sir, your kindness, your help, your guidance to me at every stage in my life, one can never forget. Not only not forget, the question of repaying your gratitude does not ever arise. All I will say from the depth of my heart, thank you, sir. Thank you for everything that you have done for me. I had the privilege of being Dr. Mohsen's student at Dhaka University, and today is 7th of March. Mr. Rahmatullah has spoken at length about the 7th of March, so I will not go there in depth, except to say that all those from my generation will never forget that day. Each of us remember exactly where we were standing, where we were sitting, through which road we went from Dhanmondi 32 to the race course. It's a day that will forever live in our memory, and therefore I'm particularly glad that this event coincides with 7th of March, which actually is the day of the beginning of our independence. Mr. Vice Chancellor, let me start by saying that the theme of your conference is extraordinarily helpful. There was never in history the relationship between Bangladesh and India as good as it is today. The fact that we went for a period of time in the 80s and 90s when the relationship with India was not as good is really a shame, because India and Bangladesh are united in every conceivable way. We have a shared culture, we have a shared history, we share the language with West Bengal, we have a shared literature, music, and festivities. If that was not enough to tie these two countries, which share 2,400 miles of common border, our relationship and our bonds were made sacred by blood shed both by Indians and Bangladeshi in our liberation. Professor Rahmatullah has already said, but for Bangabandhu, we may not have been in. But for the joint effort of India and Bangladesh and the sacrifices that the two countries made, we would not for sure have become independent in 9 months' struggle. So it is therefore very important to realize our bonds with India are made in a very special place, in a very special way, and that will endure for all times to come. I will briefly touch on our relationship and then come to the current period. In 2009, when Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina came to power, and through good luck, I was privileged to work with her, and I went to, after she asked me to join her, I asked her, what would you like us to do? What should be our priority? She said, we want to rebuild our relationship with India. And then to asked her, where do we start? Should we start with confidence building? Should we go for low-hanging fruits and gradually build up? Her answer was straight, and it was against all conventional wisdom. I want the relationship resolved across the board. Nothing is important, nothing is less important, everything is important because India is important to us. Those were her instructions on which we started, and in January 2010, when the two Prime Ministers, Prime Minister Hasina and Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, met in Delhi, a completely new roadmap was created. Every conceivable item of dispute, irritation, problem, which had been hanging for nearly 70 years, were all cleared because the two Prime Ministers gave one very simple instruction. The two said together that it is not what is good for India or what is good for Bangladesh. What is good for the people of these two countries. And that will be, they said, the guiding principle for resolving all our problems. And let me ask you to consider a few things which will tell you how we put the people of two countries at the core of our resolution. There were a number of very, very critical issues which were not resolved since 1947. One was, as you remember, Chit Mahals, the enclaves, and the problem could not be resolved because it was all along believed that if this problem would need to resettle thousands of Indians and Bangladeshis. Prime Minister said, in seeking a resolution, we must not upset anybody from their home. Nobody should lose their livelihood. Nobody should lose their land if they so want to keep their land. One of the most complicated problems was resolved. Nobody involuntarily had to leave their homes. Only the few who chose to leave left. Beyond that, everybody stayed. A huge change of territories took place, but nobody was ousted from their home involuntarily. Our second problem was what is known as adverse possession of land. We were occupying Indian land, Indians were occupying some of our land. And the reason we could not until then resolve was because it would mean taking people, Bangladeshis out of India and pushing Indians to from Bangladesh to India. What we did, it has never happened in history before, we changed the map. We did not ask people to move from one place to the other. Never in history national boundaries have been changed because we wanted to put people first. In the same way, when it came to border demarcation, we put the same two things, livelihood and people's homestead. For instance, along the Sylhet-Assam border. There were lots of tea gardens, half of which was in Bangladesh, half of which was in India. Basically, we took the same principle again and said wherever people's livelihood is involved, people cannot be shifted. So, for instance, those of you who know, large number of hill people, especially Kashias, live there. Their livelihood is cultivating palm leaf. Now, for palm leaf, you need trees. So, we went round all the trees that Kashias people live. India had to give those trees to us because we would not disturb them. It was in this spirit that the our Prime Minister resolved. The result is, today, we have no dispute. Of course, some of you will think about peace stuff. I'll come to that in a moment. The reality is, there is no dispute. Even on peace stuff, our solution has been arrived at. We have initiated the agreement. We are receiving the water. Unfortunately, the Indian government has not been able to persuade West Bengal government, and therefore we have not been able to finalize it. And on water, the same thing happened. Water, Prime Minister Hasina said, supports the life of the people. So, if you take away their water, you will take away their livelihood. Therefore, make sure the water is distributed not equally, equitably. Big difference. Equally means according to population or according to land. Equitably means according to the needs of the people. And in all these things, Bangladesh did extremely well. And today, we have a relationship which is very special. Bangladesh suffered an adverse balance of trade with India. Bangladesh was exporting to India around $250 million, whereas India was and is exporting about in excess of $8 billion to Bangladesh. Of course, we realized that the only way to start the process was to get access to the Indian market. Nowhere in the history, a country has given to its neighbor full access to the market, duty-free. Today, we can export to India anything we like as long as we are competitive and we don't have to pay any duties. In the last 5 years, our export has gone from 250 million to well over $1 billion. We also realized that this was not enough. We would have to further boost our export, but we don't have the capacity as yet. So, we invited the Indians to come and invest in Bangladesh. We have invited other countries to come and invest in Bangladesh. And no matter which country produces anything in Bangladesh, they get the same benefit of exporting to India duty-free. So anything manufactured by American, British, EU goes to India duty-free. Again, you will not see such a parallel in the history of the world. Today, Bangladesh is now the center of connectivity in South Asia. That has been our highest priority. And this, with our connectivity improving, our trade is also improving. We had problems of power shortage. I remember in 2009, when I first came back to Bangladesh, I was told your government will not last 6 months because of power shortage. If this government cannot resolve power shortage, this government would not survive. A solution which was considered impossible, to import power from India to Bangladesh. We were threatened, if that happens, that electric line will come over dead bodies of our leaders. Today, I'm happy to say we are buying in excess of 2,400 or 500 megawatts, and no dead bodies have yet been found. You can see how intense and close our relationship with India is. And therefore, naturally, the subject matter of today's conference becomes absolutely central. How can we now enhance cooperation, collaboration in non-traditional areas of technology, of science, of information, IT, and many other areas where India has done extremely well, and we are also in a position to take advantage. Bangladesh is now one of the fastest growing IT society in the world. We had zero export of IT products, softwares, apps, or backroom services 5-6 years ago. Today, it is the fastest growing area of growth area, and therefore time has really come to look at it. How can we, with the best of friendship that exists between the two countries, the complementarities that exist between the two countries, the shared vision and shared problems that we have, it is time that we throw away the mindset of the past, come together, work together, solve problems together, and remember the single largest problem for both Bangladesh and India is poverty. And poverty can only be resolved when we come together. It cannot be solved by beggaring each other. And therefore, I would request the learned scholars, professionals from both Bangladesh and India to use this conference, workshop, to devise concrete areas of cooperation, and before they leave, I hope agreements will have been signed, memorandum of understandings will have been signed, so that we can move from what is purely an academic conference to a place where we are actually transacting business and producing joint products and alleviating the poverty of our respective countries. I have said enough. Some of you will be saying, is this man whitewashing some of the problems that are recently being experienced? I have not whitewashed, and I do not intend to whitewash. I will simply say this. We have many fields. We have our own ideas of what is good and what is bad. What is good and what is not so good. But that does not mean that we should interfere in our neighbors' affairs. We have to respect their thing, and we have to safeguard our own interests. For us in Bangladesh, our whole outlook is framed by the values instilled in us during the War of Liberation. Democratic principles, secularism, plural society, and social justice. But of course, it is true that sometimes influence from the neighboring countries can come. And that is why we all have to be very, very careful and safeguard our society from any threat to the minority communities, to our pluralism, to our secularism. If we do not, I am afraid Bangladesh, the purpose of Bangladesh, the distinct identity of Bangladesh will be lost. Therefore, for us it is important that we preserve it and we cherish it and we take it forward. I have already spoken at great length, so I am going to stop here at this moment. Once more to thank the university and the board and the students and the faculty for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much. I wish you all the very best in this conference. With those words, I end. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu.